Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. Thanks for spending some time with us. This is what democracy looks like. That's the focus of tonight's angle.
The long and short of what we found out tonight is that I'm going to be traveling more with Tricia on her photography trips than I would have otherwise. And that's okay.
When you participate in democracy, sometimes it doesn't turn out the way you want it to. But you don't pout, you don't whine, you don't claim the election was stolen.
I would have come out sooner, but I had to call my opponent and concede, and it took a while to find Ed Galrine in Tel Aviv. I did get the call through, though. I have called and conceded the race.
So Massey defeated, Cassidy defeated, Raffensperger, bye-bye. They all lost their races to Trump-endorsed opponents. Let's call it involuntary retirement. But how can this be, you say? Because the press told us that the losers were the truly principled conservatives. And the media told us that Donald Trump was finished. His political influence was fading. But like so many times before, this was simply wishful thinking by people who've been rooting against Trump for more than a decade now. How many times can these people be wrong and still call themselves political analysts? The fact is, the 2026 primary cycle for the House, Senate, and governorships, well, Trump is batting 1,000. He's lost a small number of races on the state level, but he remains the driving force in Republican Party politics. Of course, the question now is, will these candidates be able to win their general election battles? The Cook Political Report tells us that Trump's in the danger zone with his approval ratings. Gas prices, of course, weighing heavily on voters' minds. But Speaker Johnson said Trump is locked in and focused on November.
His endorsement is the most powerful in the history of politics. I mean, anywhere in the world. I think it's just a phenomenon. The president knows what's at stake in this fall's elections, and he and I need conservative patriots here ready to help us continue saving America.
The voters want Republican politicians who are amenable, at least, to working with Donald Trump on the big issues. The establishment and some of these libertarian types like Massey, who lost last night and in 2024, or who were driven into retirement before that, they weren't beaten by Israel or the Epstein files, or even they weren't even really beaten by Donald Trump. They were beaten by Trump's voters. I mean, these people have been mad since the Tea Party rallies in 2010. I should know, I was there. And as Trump said many times, he's just the vessel that they needed.
Never forget, our enemies want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom. I won't. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you. And in the end, they are not after me. They're after you. I'm just standing in their way. I always will.
And they believe him. And for over a decade, the people stuck with Donald Trump. They trusted Donald Trump because he sacrificed for them. 2 impeachments, multiple prosecutions, civil suits, indictments. He was shot at, 2 more assassination attempts, and the man just keeps going. So people like Massey and Cassidy, look, they had years and years to convince the voters that they had the best ideas on issues like immigration, the economy, foreign policy. But in the end, they failed. The truth is, Trump has just done more for the average American than all of these people combined in their entire career. Republican voters want the Trump agenda advanced. But instead, it always seems like it gets, mucked up in the Senate. John Thune cannot or will not advance the Save America Act in the Senate. And why? Because the votes aren't there. Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Thom Tillis, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, none of them are going to vote to eliminate the filibuster and push through election integrity, which we desperately need, like voter ID. And I've got to say at this point, I agree that people should have principled disagreements. If they want to have disagreements with the president, that's fine. But the Senate, of course, is also supposed to be the cooling saucer for the House, slow things down. I understand that as well. But when Republicans reflexively oppose Donald Trump time after time on the very issues that he ran on and won big on, you have to ask the question, whom are those Republicans really serving? Some just come across as perpetually sour. When Rand Paul was asked about Massey's defeat last night, this was his response.
Senator, just quickly, do you have any reaction to Massey's loss? No?
Well, but Rand Paul was elected to stand up, to McConnell and the Dems, not to stand up to Trump and most of his voters. His political days may also be numbered. So I think libertarians like Paul and Massey, the old McConnell, Cornyn wing of the party, they always hoped that Trump was just a temporary problem for them, that eventually the voters would give power back to the old establishment, the grown-ups of the GOP. Perhaps the primary losers should listen to the words of, believe it or not, Mitt Romney, who actually seemed to grasp reality back in 2024.
What lessons are you taking away from the election results?
Donald Trump won. He won overwhelmingly. He said what he was going to do, and that's what he's doing. I mean, people are saying, oh, I don't like this appointment or this policy that he's talking about. But those are the things he said he was going to do when he ran. Not the people I would have chosen, but I lost. He won, all right?
Republican voters stuck with Trump because they wanted real change, not just tweaks to old policies that have failed for decades. And they know that what Trump did since 2015 is he's trying his best to give them that fundamental change. And that's the angle.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.